Hi, welcome to my video on my session that I created, Movement in the Classroom. So, I actually had the honor and privilege to present this session to a group of preschool teachers that I oversee. I had about 50 people in attendance. So, when the teachers came in, I had an agenda for them. This always helps me as a participant in a session to just kind of be able to follow along and know how much is left, keep my attention. So, I made this little handout. One piece that we talked about is the spiritual component, especially because I work in a Christian school. I love that this is something that I can easily bring into anything that I'm doing with teachers. And so we talked about how movement integration does have spiritual components, in that throughout the Bible, there's a lot of connections between spiritual and physical health. We talked about Proverbs 17:22, how a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit saps a person's strength, which that just resonates so much. But whenever in my personal life I find that my physical health is in alignment, then my spiritual health usually follows quickly after that. One reason that I wanted to do this presentation or this topic in the first place was, I believe it was in Susa. I was reading, and there was a statistic in there that said that students are seated up to 75% of a school day. And that just kind of floored me. Now, when I was presenting to preschool teachers, they kind of laughed because that's not true in preschool world, but it is true in our academy for sure. I could agree with that, especially with our secondary students. And so we just need to, start reworking our teaching practices and principles. And because students sitting that long during the day is definitely contributing to our childhood obesity crisis that we're facing. It's contributing to low academic performance, feelings of sluggishness, lack of attention. And then I gave an example of when I was in college. I had a college professor. He was just the sweetest man, but he had such a monotone voice and he just lectured the entire time. There was no class discussion, nothing. And every day I'd almost fall asleep in his class, which is very unlike me. I love to learn, but I could not stay awake in his class. Every day was a challenge. And so I use that as an example of what happens when we're seated throughout the day. The main thing that I wanted to get across to the teachers in my presentation was that I was not telling them this just because I think it's a good idea or it's my opinion, but that this is based on actual research. And so we talked about the BDNF chemical that helps to build working memory, retention. We talked about how exercise increases brain mass and improves cognitive functioning. And then we talked about the importance of oxygenation and how blood flow brings oxygen to the hippocampus. And that is where attention and performance are activated that way. We also tied this back to when you yawn. And when you yawn, your brain is trying to get oxygen. And so if your students are yawning, then maybe you need to get up and do some movement with your students. So it was important to me that they understood that piece, that this is all based in research. We did talk a little bit about why teachers don't do this. If integrating movement is such an amazing thing, why aren't teachers doing this today? And so we talked about pressure and how teachers have a lot that they have to cover in a day, and this just kind of feels like one more thing to add on their to-do list. And then we talked about how teachers who have been in this for a little while don't always love to change their current teaching practices. I don't know that it's normal for teachers to be trained in movement integration. And so that requires a change, which can be very difficult. Then we actually, then I talked with the teachers about 3 ways that they can integrate movement. So we talked about brain breaks, movement integration, and then transitions and routines. And we tried all 3. So first I talked about brain breaks and we acted some things out. I had a couple snapshots of ideas, but then I had a Go Noodle video that we did together as a group. And so it was about patterns. So I was showing them how they could also integrate academic pieces that they're trying to teach in the classroom. But all of the teachers, I made them do the video with me. They were laughing and they were out of breath. And then I talked about how after now that they've done that movement piece, they're so much more ready to learn what the rest of the things that I have for them in the presentation, because now their brain is oxygenated and they're ready to take in more information. After brain breaks, we talked about actually integrating movement into the curriculum or into the learning. And so we talked about some specific curriculums that do this. We talked about some equipment they can utilize. I brought in some examples. I brought in a wobbly stool and a stretchy band and I call it a busy bottom. I don't even know if that's really what it's called, but pieces that students can sit on or play up with their feet to kind of get that movement in. We talked about some technology pieces, but the piece I really wanted to focus on was movement and integrating that into the actual academic content. And so after we discussed this, then I showed them a video. This is a YouTube video. It's about 8 minutes long, and I loved it for the preschool teachers specifically. This video showed different teachers from the preschool world in motion. And what I loved about it is it was just idea of ways that they could organically include movement in their classroom. So after we watched the video, then I had them move with a stand up, hand up, pair up. So I played music, they found their partner, and then when the music stopped, they shared their ideas that they learned from the video. Then I had them actually practice some of the things that we had learned. So I taught them about four corners and how they could formulate academic questions, and then the teachers or students would vote with their bodies. So we tried one. We tried several together. This is just an example of one that I made. And then teachers had to pick their favorite kind of food by walking to the corner of the room that they wanted to choose as their answer, which was really fun. I also had a handout. I didn't make the handout, I did find it online. And so with this handout, let me get a closer shot here. We talked about how the teachers could spell their name using these motions for each letter. Not only that, but they could use this for spelling words. They could use this for CVC words. So if you wanted to spell cat, right, for C, you would hop on your right foot 5 times. Then for A, you do 3 frog hops. And then for T, you would do 7 kangaroo jumps. So I had all the teachers in the room spell out their name, which was very entertaining to watch. But I love this activity. It's just a simple way, especially in the primary grades, to do practice, but also movement integration. Then the last area we talked about was transitions and routines. And so one thing that I did is I gave a couple of examples, but then I know that, I'm talking to a group of teachers, they have a lot of things that they could share about how to integrate movement into their transitions and routines. So I had an activity for them to pair together. Everyone in the room got a card that looked like this. I had enough for all 50 participants. And then when it was time, they had to go and find their match, and then that's who they talked with to discuss their transition ideas. So bacon had to find eggs, and milk had to find cookies. And this was just a really fun way to get people to move, to find each other, and to partner up with someone. Then at the end, we did a wrap up. I also tried to incorporate some elements of the arts to tie in everything that I've learned from this class. So I had each teacher on an index card draw 3 pictures to symbolize 3 things that they were taking away from the presentation. So they had a great time with this, and hopefully it just helped to solidify what they learned in the session. And then finally, I created this QR code connected to a Google form here. It had 6 or 7 questions on it, and this was just a short evaluation to help me as a presenter to continue to grow and learn. And this is a snapshot of some of the responses that I got in return. And I know it's really tiny, but this was helpful in case I ever do get to present this again. So we had a really fun time, and I really enjoyed teaching this session.